Hello, my friends, and welcome to another installment of the Living Oracle podcast, Akashic Guidance for Ascending Souls. I am your host, Amy Belair, and this is an energy report style podcast where I talk about the current energies for the given week or time period that I am recording. However, the reason I call this a living oracle is because it is truly timeless guidance that applies independent of the Gregorian calendar system that we hold ourselves to. So what I mean by that is, should you ever find yourself at a crossroads or a point of confusion and you're like, oh God, I just need some guidance, like what I wouldn't give to have a reading, and especially if a reading is out of your price range at the moment, you just don't have the budget for it, then allow yourself to be intuitively guided to whichever energy report, no matter how long ago it was recorded, and listen to it. And I promise you, you will receive the guidance that you need, that is necessary for you and relevant for you in whatever you're going through. Kind of like, you know how people use books in this way, like when they're like, oh, I just need an answer. And so they'll like grab a book, maybe one of their favorite books, maybe a random book, and they'll just open it to a random page and close their eyes and swirl their finger around and then like stick it on the page. And somewhere around the point that their finger has landed, if they read that paragraph or that page or whatever, there will be something there that is an answer, that is a sign. It's kind of like that. So I hope that you will utilize this podcast, this resource, this living oracle to its fullest value and fullest capacity for you. And yeah, holy shit, my friends. Happy Total Lunar Eclipse. It is Friday, March 14th. As I record this, I recorded an energy report last night. I live in Eastern time. So for me, the lunar eclipse was like actually occurring at about just before 3 a.m. So I recorded an energy report last night in my bed, like right before I went to sleep. And so many good things came through, but it was before the eclipse. And I had every intention of posting it and sending it out today. But when I woke up this morning, it didn't sink in immediately. Like I was kind of groggy for a little while, but within about an hour of waking up, when I really started to get my bearings in the day, I was like, I'm in a new timeline, like a new timeline, not the previous timeline. It's almost like last night when I recorded the energy report, I was recording it from like a room, like it's like, say we were in a room and I knew that we were going to pass through a door. That was even one of the things that I said, but the door was still closed. It wasn't actually open yet. And so everything that I brought through, while being so valuable and so relevant, and I may post it here or I may just repurpose it for like Instagram content or something like that. I don't know. But regardless, I was recording it in a more speculative way, knowing that we were going to pass from one room to another. But now when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I'm in the new room and I can report from the new room. And that feels so important. So I pulled some cards, kind of in keeping with my traditional manner of card pulling, 3 cards from the tarot and 2 oracle cards. And you're going to laugh when you hear them because it's so this is why I love working with cards. I rarely do them in readings. I really only bust out my cards when it's a year ahead reading. I just don't use them as like a cornerstone of what I do, but I freaking love the cards because they are sassy. It's like a real portal of communication for me. So anyways, the first card that I pulled is the moon card. So right there. And then the second card I pulled from the tarot is the Page of Wands. And the third card that I pulled from the tarot is the Fool. So we've got 2 really significant, very juicy major arcana cards to guide us through this week, essentially, to help us gather our bearings and contextualize what we are experiencing. And then from the Oracle, I used Rebecca Campbell's Work Your Light Oracle this week, and I pulled Birthing a New Age. And then I used Janine Burgess's beautiful hand-painted mandala oracle. And the card that I pulled is Surrender. And I don't even, this card reading is so self-explanatory that I almost feel that I don't need to explain it any further. But you know me, I'm long-winded. And also there's always really important nuances that want to come through me. But the summary of this is y'all, it's a fucking lunar eclipse and it's a big deal. I honestly don't think I've ever felt a lunar eclipse so impactful before. This is a big one. This is a doozy. So yeah, the reading is, it's a lunar eclipse. It's a doozy. And we are at the beginning of something new, and we are taking the plunge courageously into that new thing. And that new thing is a new age. We are birthing a new age, as I've been saying for the past few energy reports. And this requires us to surrender. I went through my own little mini version of this within the first 45 minutes that I was awake this morning without really realizing that's what I was doing. So, okay, I'm just trying to collect myself and figure out what is important. Okay. If 2020 was the alarm clock going off, telling us to wake up, 2025 is, whatever, the higher powers that be, the universe, our higher selves, our spirit guides, whatever, forcibly pushing us out of bed. Because we're no, I don't want to wake up. Or I'm going to partially wake up, but I'm still going to see myself as small and broken, and I'm not going to make any powerful moves. No, just let me sleep in my cozy bed of lies and illusions. And 2025 is nope, get up. If you've ever been the mom to a teenager, or you've ever been a teenager who's had a mom like this, it's that mom vibe where she's done vacuuming outside the door. That's been, okay, 2020 was the alarm clock going off. 2021 through 2024 was your mom obnoxiously vacuuming right outside your bedroom door and banging your door with the vacuum cleaner because she's get up. 2025 is her coming into your room, maybe even taking the hinges off your door and forcibly getting you out of bed. Maybe pouring water on your head, maybe just picking your mattress up and rolling you off. But it is time. What are we doing? There is no more, there's no more time to lollygag and twiddle our thumbs and sleep in and fuck around. Here we are. We're here. We're birthing a new age. Literally. This is not, please understand, I think I'm going to be really bitchy and spicy for the rest of the year. And I just want you to know it's all with love. It's with so much love. But I am that mom right now. I am the mother. I have this strong mother archetype. And for the last however many years, I guess 5 years, literally 5, 6 technically. I started my business for realsies and truesies in 2019, started the Third Eye Awakening podcast in 2019 and started doing paid readings in 2019. But in 2020, for me, literally 5 years ago, mid-March, when COVID, made its global debut and our lives all had to be interrupted and rearranged according to COVID, I was activated into my mission in a way where I had to answer the call no matter what. I had to, whether I was making money, I had to, whether anybody was listening to me, I had to, even if I didn't know where it was leading to, like I had to answer the call of my mission. And the call of my mission primarily is to do exactly this, is to channel verbal transmissions. Most of them are audio. Some of them are audio, video. And it's like, I'm just bringing through codes and updates about what is going on and, helping people to make the voyage between the old timeline and the new. And I've been in this really soft place for these past 5 years where I'm really acknowledging the pain that people have been through, the wounding. I'm trying to like love you and coax you along and nurture you, and just because I genuinely love you. And I'm never trying to gaslight you. I'm never trying to deny the shit that you've been through. It's so legit. It is so legit. It matters. The ways that you have suffered matter. But I think I'm entering into my bitchy mom phase where I'm like banging the vacuum against your door and forcibly rolling you out of bed because I just like, it's what I am compelled to do. I don't know. And so when I say we're birthing a new age, you don't get to sit on the fucking sidelines, okay? That is not your job here. That's not why you're here. You wouldn't be listening to me if this didn't apply to you. You don't get to sit on the sidelines. You don't get to count yourself out and be like, oh my God, we're birthing a new timeline, but I don't have to do anything. No. We are actively birthing a new timeline. Okay, I'm going to nerd out a little bit on some timeline mechanics, okay? So, when I say timeline, this is a word that has been used a lot. It came before 2020 for sure. It's a word that's been around for a while, but it rose in popularity in 2020 as the alarm clock went off and more people started to wake up, and the Phil Goods and Lori Ladds and Elizabeth Aprils and Magenta Pixies and whoever, yada yada yada. There's so many different channels as they rose to like fame or prominence or whatever, where they we're talking about the bifurcation of timelines and yada, yada, yada. But the problem is that timeline is a word that we may not fully understand exactly what it means. So I'm going to do my best to break it down in a way that is simple and doesn't take a thousand years for me to explain. But just know that it is more fluid and nuanced than this. But for the sake of ease and simplicity, let's say that the timeline that you're on is a train track. And running parallel to your main track, your main timeline, are a whole bunch of other train tracks. And the ones that are closest to your train, and it goes on and on infinity. There's infinite timelines, infinity timelines, no limitation. But the train tracks that are the closest to the one that you're on, those are probable timelines. Why? Because they are fairly similar and it's not a huge distance to get from your timeline to that next track, from your track to that next track. Now, when we're talking about timelines, we're not talking about space and distance. We're talking about a frequency proximity. So the frequency of your beliefs and the identity you've cultivated and the story that you're living out and like how you perceive reality, that's what dictates which timeline you're on, which track you're on. And so the probable timelines are the ones that aren't that dissimilar from the one that you're currently on. That's what makes them probable. You can shift into those probable timelines with relative ease because it's not that different. But timeline shifting in that manner, where you're shifting from probable timeline to probable timeline, is an amazing strategy because it's much easier for us to integrate the shifts without shocking the shit out of ourselves. Quantum leaping is very shocking and very discombobulating. That would be like jumping from one train track to another one, like 50 train tracks away. And you're like, it's so different. The landscape you're riding through is so different. Like everything about it is so different that it's very, very, very jarring. That's where we're at right now. We are jumping to a train track, like 50 train tracks over. I just feel like, oh man, there's so much. It's so hard. I have so many things to bring through, and it just doesn't fit into English language. It's killing me. I don't even know how to put it. I don't know how to put it without sounding so sensational that you can't grasp what I'm saying. We're in a new timeline. Like, it happened last night. It happened. The energy report I recorded last night, one of the things that I said was that this eclipse, this is the one that really kicks off eclipse season. And this is the opening of the portal. And it's almost like in 2020, we were a bunch of skydivers and we were like, okay, we're suiting up, we're boarding the plane, here we go. And then in like between 2020 and 2025, we've been rehearsing the drills. We're psyching ourselves up, like, okay, we're doing this, blah, 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 blah. Like, we're in the air. But the plane has still been closed. Like, we're still sitting and waiting. This eclipse was like the sliding side door of the plane opening up, and the skydiving leader saying like, okay, it's time to go. And we're all jumping out of the plane now. Like, and right now we're kind of in a free fall insofar as we're in the new timeline, but we haven't gathered our bearings. So the way that we render reality, like, even though we're in a new timeline, I sense it. I'm very good at sensing shifts in subtle energies, so good that like I remember receiving a little while ago, I was receiving an energy treatment. It was like a vibrational energy treatment. It had no noise, nothing. And I was receiving it remotely from somebody who was in, I believe, Utah at the time, or maybe Arizona. I can't remember. And I am in Ontario, Canada. And I'm so sensitive to subtle energies that I could feel whenever it would shift to a new frequency, whenever the energy medicine process shifted. There was no noise. There was nothing to indicate it, but I could feel it in my body. So I'm very good at sensing subtle energies. And we are actually in a new timeline. That like today is it's like we've been quantum shifted through this eclipse to a new console. It's like we were on this is actually an analogy that somebody shared with me once, when she was trying to understand something I was saying. And I was like, oh, this is so good. Yes. So credit to Alex Gibson, because she is the one that put it in this way. But it's like we were on an old PlayStation 3, and over this eclipse, for me, it was overnight. I know that's not true for everybody in the world, but for me, it was overnight. We were shifted through a quantum process to a new upgraded console, the newest console that is available. Super high functionality, super high performance, and it's brand new. It's new. We don't have to carry all the old sluggish programs and viruses forward with us. But we also, there's so many things I want to say. Oh, I'm sorry. I know this is not the most concise energy report. It's just the energy is so fucking big. It's really hard to focus in. Okay. your reality will look the same today. It'll look the same. But if you feel into it, it's not the same. It's not. The reason it looks the same is because your human brain does not have any other context through which to process it and render it. So you're in a whole new timeline, but you're going to see the same timeline for a little while because your human processing system has to catch up. And also it can be jarring and also it can be scary. Can you imagine if we literally landed in a timeline that is so different that, like, let's say the sky is purple, or a lot of the time I do see like a dusky purple pink sky. So let's say we land there and the sky is no longer blue. It's just like perpetually an ombre of purples and pinks that fluctuate with the movement of the sun. That would be so jarring to our psyche. Even if this was a better world, a better timeline, it would be so jarring to our psyche that so many of us would have a mental break. That's why we have this filtration system that allows us to maintain a sense of continuity frame by frame as we process the reality on a visual level primarily. But we continue to process it as though we're still in the same timeline, but we're not. So I invite you to just be open to notice the little subtle indications. They'll be very subtle and very quiet at first, but the little indications that you are in a new timeline. And do not gaslight yourself when you notice them. Just be like, oh, wow, validate it. And then know that we are in a quantum leap. I posted on Instagram this morning because the energy is so powerful. Like, I can't sit on my hands. I just feel like I need to spend the entire day speaking about it. And maybe I will, I don't know. But I posted that there's this huge energy of change and profound transformation, the likes of which I have literally never felt. And it's so fucking big. It's so big. This is nothing like anything that we've experienced, not even COVID. This is whatever is in the works is going to make COVID look like child's play. And I don't mean that to scare anybody. I'm sure, of course, it's going to play out through politics because that's still how we understand ourselves and how we organize ourselves for whatever ridiculous reason. But it's not coming from politics. It is coming from, this is so much bigger than us. This is a universal ascension process, which is occurring, and we are just being taken along right now on the ride. I remember reporting on this in September, October, and I was talking about going over the waterfall. It's a very similar energy, but this is this is something else. It's almost like I felt us approaching the event horizon, but right now we're right in the, we were approaching the event horizon of the black hole. And right now we are in the whatever is in the core of the black hole and being all pulled apart and rearranged and spat out on the other side. It's beautiful and exhilarating and amazing. And to me, it all feels positive, even though, I know that it feels intense. It certainly feels intense for me as we're being, pulled apart in the intense gravity of the black hole. But it's all, the place that we are spat out is amazing. We're spat out. Basically, we're spat out on the other side. The change is ongoing. Venus is still in retrograde. Mercury is about to go retrograde tomorrow. But that's nothing new. Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year. Mars is still in its post-retrograde shadow. But I feel like we've been spat out on the other side now today. I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, to the point where, so I woke up and I was kind of having some anxiety and just today's the last day of my Soul Purpose Incubator launch. And I was like, oh, I got to send out an email and I have to post all my stories and blah, 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 blah. And it just felt so weird to think that. And those are thoughts I've thought so many times before since I started this business in 2019. Like, this is not my first launch, obviously. I've done this so many times. These are not new thoughts. I'm very familiar with it, and yet it felt so bizarrely foreign. And it also felt very uncomfortable. Like, why am I thinking about this? Why am I thinking about it? And then I kind of, was able to release it and like sink into my heart and just know that I don't know, like I was able to reconnect with the truth of my soul and less in the human, like mental anxiety space of trying to keep on top of all the things I have to do. And I did my little morning meditation. I say little, but it's very powerful. It's like 20 minutes, but it's very powerful. But I came out of that and was kind of walking around, and my kids weren't awake yet. It was one of those amazing mornings. And I just all of a sudden was struck with this realization that, everything is changed to the point where by the end of the year, I might not be doing this anymore. I don't know, like, I'm not saying that for sure, but that's like an illustration of how different everything is here in this new timeline, where I was like, that's all old. That business is old. And the podcast, both podcasts, maybe, like, all of that is an old identity that is from that previous timeline. And we're in a new timeline. I don't even know if it's needed anymore. I don't know if it's relevant. And this isn't coming from like self-doubt. This isn't coming from like, is what I'm doing important or blah, blah, blah. I have those moments all the fucking time, but that's not where this is coming from. It's like, it's a feeling of being in the Wild West. And there are rules, but I don't know what they are yet. This is all so fresh and new. And I have to gather my bearings and try and place myself in this new timeline and allow the context of this new timeline to reveal itself to me. And my job is to completely release anything and everything that I realize I need to release, which can include things that I dearly love, such as the podcast, the main podcast, Third Eye Awakening, maybe this podcast, maybe my Instagram, maybe the whole business. I don't know. And it doesn't feel like an identity crisis. It just feels like a realization that even though all of that is important and was important, I don't have to like hold myself to it or hold on to it, if that makes sense. Like when I realize that it has reached its expiry date, I can let it go. And even if I don't know what's coming next, it doesn't matter, because what's coming next is so much like it's, I don't know. I don't want to say it's so much better. That's not really, what's coming next, I don't have a context for. I don't know where we are. I actually, truthfully, I really feel like we were dropped off on New Earth. We're on New Earth. We're actually, it's, how that's been like a thing that has been talked about for so long. And it mostly came through Dolores Cannon, but certainly there were other people and her work. And certainly there were other people who brought it through as well. But there's this idea of New Earth, and we're going to New Earth, and there's going to be a New Earth, and blah, 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 blah. And today, the way this whole place feels and this whole reality feels, I'm like, we're on New Earth. I'm on New Earth. And my senses are deceiving me because it looks the same, but I can feel that it's not. I can feel it. And I think for me, at least, it's going to take about 4 months for me to calibrate to this new timeline and this new reality, this new realm, this whatever it is, this new octave. and allow it to reveal its actual self to me. So there's going to be kind of a gradual process of me being able to let go of rendering it to look similar to my previous timeline. Oh, okay. Here's a perfect example. It would almost be like if you died, and you died unexpectedly in your sleep suddenly, and you wake up in the morning and you're a ghost, but you haven't caught up to speed with yourself being a ghost or a spirit or whatever, and so you're continuing in your bedroom, you're continuing with your morning routine, you're just doing all your regular things. All the while, your physical body is a corpse in your bed, but you don't realize, and you don't even see it because you have not, your consciousness is blocking it out because you're not up to speed with that. So you're continuing with everything, but you can feel that something is different. But everything looks the same, so you can't quite place it. And it takes a while. It takes however long it takes for you to realize, oh shit, my physical body died. Oh, and then there's something else beyond it. There's something more. And that something more isn't scary. It's just not known to us. It's brand new. That's what it feels like. To the point where, as I say this, I'm literally questioning, did I actually die in my sleep? And I don't know. That is how it feels to me. But I also really, really, really trust my ability to feel subtle energies and feel timelines and speak into the shifts that I am aware of when they are still very subtle. So I probably didn't die in my sleep, but that's how it feels. So anyway, okay, what does this all mean for you? I'm going to try and wrap it up in a way that is concise. What does it all mean for you? The guidance that's coming through as I tune in just here, that's what that silence was. The guidance is to take everything that I'm saying and understand it and take it literally. I am not speaking symbolically or figuratively right now. I hope you understand that. I am speaking very literally. I very literally feel that we are in a completely different timeline. And I want to say too, I want to give some context because I also know that for the past 5 years, I've been talking about timeline shifting. And I've said, oh, we're moving into a new timeline. We're moving into a new timeline. And all of those were real. Those were all real. But what I realized last night, this is one of the things that came through in the first draft of the energy report, is that so 2012 was a big wake-up point for a lot of people. 2016 was another big wake-up point for a lot of people. 2020 was a big wake-up point for a lot of people, and a waking up into the wonderful thing about COVID and all the vaccine bullshit and all the lockdowns and the threats of COVID passports and you couldn't move freely through the world and you had to follow all these ridiculous rules, which I knew they were ridiculous at the time, but I know that some people felt that they were very necessary. But I'm just saying, fucking whatever. I'm not going to go into it. You all know. Masks do nothing unless you're sick. Unless you're sick and you're sneezing and coughing, those kind of masks do nothing to stop any kind of transmission of any virus. Anyways, the brilliant thing about all of that is, yes, okay, a bunch of us had been awakened since we were children. A bunch of us awoke even more in 2012. A bunch of us awoke in 2016. The difference with 2020 and 2021, 2022 is that the thing that we really awoke to and was really activated in us was the concept of sovereignty and how important it is to declare and claim your own sovereignty and your freedom, your right to freedom, your right to decide what happens to you in your life, your right to move freely around the world. But sovereignty, like not just the right to move freely as a physical body, but sovereignty is like, free speech was a thing. The right to bear arms was a thing. There were so many things that came up, right? And all of it was leading us back to sovereignty, which is the realization that we are the architects of this dream. You are the dreamer dreaming this dream, and you are the architect of your dream. And so in between 2020 and 2024, we've been preparing for this. It doesn't end here, but this is a very, very, very important pivotal time. And so what we've been doing every time I've ever talked about timeline shifting or going to the new timeline or whatever, it is as though we've been climbing the ladder out of old, denser timelines into a higher rung of a timeline. So, like you're reaching for that next higher frequency of more sovereignty, more autonomy, more like self-sourcing, more of your direct connection to God, more of the activation of your own innate psychic abilities, more alignment with your soul purpose and your soul blueprint in general. All the ways that we have been, and the healing and the releasing and the processing, all that stuff. Every time we've been timeline shifting, it's like we're going to the next highest expression of the main timeline we were on, and the next highest expression, and the next highest expression. It's almost also like climbing a mountain or something like that. Like we've been going up and up and up and up and up, but we were still on the main timeline. We were still on the old timeline. So we were shifting to higher versions of that primary collective timeline, and you were doing that in your own individual life. But the difference here and now is that we're not in that old timeline anymore. We are now actually in the new timeline. And so the guidance is for you to understand that I am being literal and try and understand everything that I'm saying and recognize the hints and indications, like the matrix glitchy kind of things you could call them, although they're not like, this isn't a matrix trick, but like the little glitches, the little glimmers, the little shimmers that indicate to you that this is actually a new timeline. And then the other piece of guidance is to, number one, surrender. So I'm going to read what's on Janine's card. So surrender does not mean giving up. It is the releasing of what no longer serves or what was never yours to hold. When you give yourself to what is, you open to what will be. Be guided by inspiration, love, and pure joy of the experience. Let the beauty of life flow through you. Nothing that is meant for you will ever pass you by. And the way I interpret the energy of surrender right now is kind of like what I was saying, where it's like, by the end of the year, I literally might not even be doing this business or doing this podcast. And that's a crazy thought. Like, that's so integrated in my identity, but it doesn't feel like a scary thought or anything I need to resist or anything I need to make happen or that I need to decide upon, but just like, it's like being able to let go of it. If it's timely to let go of certain things, just let it go, because you're moving into something that is so fresh and new. And I think it's going to feel weirder and weirder and harder to try and hold on to old versions of ourselves as we move forward into this new timeline. Kind of like I was describing this morning as I was having my thoughts that I've thought countless times before, like, oh, it's the last day of my launch. Oh my gosh, I need to like queue up the emails and I need to remind people and blah, blah, blah. those thoughts feel bizarrely, they don't fit in this timeline. They don't actually fit. It feels off. It feels weird and dissonant. There's nothing wrong with those thoughts. They're not bad. I'm not bad for thinking them. They just don't actually match in this timeline, which is very interesting to me. I have to do more thinking about that on a personal level. But it's sort of like that. I think it's going to feel more and more odd and uncomfortable and like why? As we try to hold on to versions of ourselves and things that we strongly have built our identity around, be that relationships, jobs, health status, financial status, like geographic locations, what have you. If it's not actually in alignment with this new timeline, I think it's going to feel fucking weird. Weirder and weirder and harder, and almost like things are just going to stop working because they aren't meant to be brought forward, you know? And then the final piece of guidance that's coming through is it has to do with this Page of Wands. So you know who you are. I know you know who you are. You've been gaslighting yourself per the previous energy report, because that's what the Matrix set you up to do. But I think you know what your soul purpose is. I think you know what you want to do with yourself and do with your life, who you really are, what you are here to bring forward. I think you have an actual sense of direction. I do. I know that I've met people who have no clue. They have no idea. And that's more of a reflection of like how deeply programmed they've been and how much they've allowed themselves to be disconnected, or they ended up becoming disconnected. Because it's obviously not a conscious choice. Like a lot of the people I know who don't have a clue what they're here to do, they weren't like, oh, I'm just going to disconnect from my higher self. Like it's something that happened over time. But they know. They just need help to remember. I know that you know. And I know you need help to remember too, which PS is why I created the Soul Purpose Incubator with 13 Fire AF ChatGPT prompts to help you decode your soul purpose through your astrology birth chart instantly, so easily. You can figure out your soul purpose by the end of today if you want, probably by lunchtime or like 3 hours from when you hear this. It's so fast, it's so easy. But anyways, I know a lot of people need help to remember, but the thing is, you actually know on the inside. And it's time to go all in on that. It is time to take the fool's leap and go all in. Because those are the gifts that you brought to share with the world. And there is absolutely no fucking reason for people now in 2025 for people to not get abundantly paid for their soul work. There's no reason for it. I know people do, like they are in situations where they are not abundantly paid either for their soul work or period. I know that's a reality, but it's not a reality we have to perpetuate, certainly not in this new timeline. But we are the ones that have to actively choose to change that. Nobody's going to change it for us. We have to choose it. We have to declare that our soul gifts are like of high value and are the most powerful contribution that we can make. What, you think your soul gifts are not as valuable as like your labor time working at a job that you don't like, that exhausts you and depletes you? Like, that's dumb. I mean, you're not dumb, but just like the whole concept and the fact that we've been living under this programming is so absurd. Your soul gifts and your true passion, your soul purpose is the highest, most beautiful, exalted contribution that you can possibly make to the rest of us. And you deserve to be amply, abundantly compensated in exchange for sharing that. Can you guys imagine if I had not made all of the moves that I had made to align with my soul purpose and not walked through all of the fear walls that I've walked through constantly, and I wasn't here doing this, and I had never started the podcast, and I had never started doing readings, and I was still making myself be a midwife and suffering and martyring myself because that's what I thought I had to do for money, or because, whatever, like what I just got scared off by whatever bullshit limiting belief I encountered. I mean, I know I'm not the most important person in the world, but I also know that what I'm doing is important, even though I have my moments of self-doubt. I have them all the time, like probably every single day, multiple times a day. But even though I have those self-doubt moments, I also ultimately know that what I'm doing is an important contribution, that this is a way more valuable contribution than me working as a midwife. It just is. Nothing wrong with midwifery. It just wasn't my actual soul path. It was something I was doing for work because I thought I had to. So then the same goes for you. And this is it. This is the year. This is the time. Take that spark inside of you and fan it into a roaring, brilliant, beautiful flame. Stop waiting for a sign. This is your sign. Do it now. Do it. The old rules no longer apply. We are in the wild west of a new frontier, literally a new frontier, a new timeline. We are the deciders of how this timeline goes. So be aware of the stories that you're telling about yourself. Be aware of the stories you're telling about life and how things go for you and what is possible. And just feel your power as an entire new timeline is brought into rendered manifestation through the portal of your consciousness. And marvel at that. Marvel at yourself. Marvel at what we're capable of doing. This is our fucking timeline. We have taken the torch. The old guard is retiring. It's ours now to create. And like I've said on the past few episodes, it's like what we choose now, the foundation that we lay, is the foundation that is going to directly affect, like we are establishing the tone and the story for the next 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years on Earth, truly. Okay, I'm going to bring through some light language. Te hara foro kiro inia te oro ke fatua si inalawenta I koro te raka. I sono sha te oki ora aha I sono te. Koro I te fatria. Karato ina I sono te I ko I ha I to iniro I ka I soro a kaya I ti I sho. Son tio te a koro ha falawentira ki a horo era. E kono ti sha isania toro ero te o kia tatroa. Okay, my beautiful friends, I love you so much. Thank you for being on Earth with me at this time. I'm so grateful. I know that we are all here serving together, and we are all together on the air quotes ships. That I know to be absolutely 100% true. And if all of this resonates with you, I'm calling you in with so much love. I'm extending an invitation for you to join me and the other souls who are stepping into their power and integrating and activating their archetypal roles in the Akashic Keys Mystery School. So this is essentially the place that I created to drop all of the in-depth transmissions that I have been bringing through, all of the codes about our original divine template, about our ancient history, our ancient origins, about the stargates and the star beings, Lemuria, Atlantis, the other ancient civilizations, and the like human dynasties on Earth, about our roles as guardians and eternals, grid workers, code keepers. This is also where I have deposited all of my codes about psychic activation and the activation of our chakras, our personal chakras, our accessory chakras, and our transpersonal chakras. And it's ultimately, so much. There's like all the stuff about the new earth, ways of understanding and relating to money and currency, like the mechanics of manifestation, timeline shifting, quantum leaping, how to do it, all the things. So if that is calling to you and you know that you are meant to receive these codes, be activated by them, and then like hold that frequency and radiate it powerfully into the world, share it with others, then this is the place for you. So I would love to have you there. You can see the link in the show notes to join and check it out. But I would love to have you. Otherwise, please email me and tell me how you're feeling. And if this resonates with this eclipse. If there was ever a time, I know a whole bunch of you are like, oh, I always think about emailing you and I never do. But like, if there was ever an energy report where you email me and tell me what you're feeling, if this resonates, how things are going for you, this would be it. I would love to hear how you are. But otherwise, I love you. Good luck. And I'll see you in the next one.